Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Tiffany Benson, one part of Team Benson, and it is now time for my spring fertilization of my garden. Alright guys, so it is now time for me to start looking at what I'm going to be doing for my spring garden and really start looking and making sure the overall health of my soil is good. I will do some normal fertilization just every single week, whether it be like just a couple things of like fish fertilizer or some worm tea, which I have over there that I just got from the AZ Worm Farm. But every season, like in between seasons, when I'm starting to lead up to put in some of like my heavy feeding vegetables new to the soil that are going to be for that next season, then I want to make sure that there are certain things just in the soil that compost provides and just have it really heavily like nutrient based. So some of the things that I have, or for the soil, I'm going to raise the level of some of the places that need more soil in them with compost, and then the other places that are fine, I'm going to just make a little divot in between some of the plants and add some compost inside there. That's going to give the plants more nutrients, and it's also going to give the worms something they can eat. Now for the top of the soil, I am going to add a combination of fish fertilizer and worm tea mixed in some water. Now I am going to save half of my worm tea because I am going to do a foliage spray, meaning that I'm going to spray it on top of the leaves because that'll add some extra microbials to the leaves to help keep the leaves healthy. And for my tree, I am going to do just this fertilizer, which is for citrus and fruit, and it's an organic one that you just sprinkle on the top, and it will slowly go down and feed the plant as it needs it. So before I go about doing all of that, I'm going to show you guys some issues in the garden that you want to look out for so that you can know when and where you need to add your fertilizer and different things that you might be needing as the soil is kind of depleting itself and depleting its nutrients throughout the growing season. So the first one I want to talk about is soil levels. So if I look in here in this bed, I can put my hand all the way down here before it touches the soil. Normally, it's right up at the top. So I'm going to add a lot of soil to just this spot in my bed. Different parts of my bed haven't depleted that much soil, but some of them have. In Arizona, we have really hard dirt. So what's happening to my beds that I found out is that the composting worms that I have in here are starting to dig deeper down into the soil. So they're actually starting to make my normal natural soil, or my native soil, a lot healthier, which has helped the plants grow a lot more. But by doing that, it's kind of sinking the soil lower and lower and lower and lower and lower. So I want to add some more soil in places where I see that it needs some help. Now also, if you guys stick with me all the way to the summer when I'm gardening in 100 and something degrees, you'll see that soil depletion also happens because I'm constantly having to deeply water. So deeply watering things will kind of reduce my soil levels as well. So then I need to add more water or more soil to the to my beds. Now I also look at my pots too as well because I'll see some soil depletion in my pots. I do add compost to my pots as well as potting mix. So I'm going to show you some of my pots so I can kind of show you how I decide whether it needs compost or whether it needs like a potting mix. So when looking at my dragon tail, which these are so beautiful guys, radish pot, I see that the soil is 1, depleted, and 2, it has been constantly dry. Now the plant is producing like crazy, as you can see, so I don't think that it's a nutrients thing, but I do think that adding some extra potting mix to where it has like the things like perlite or coco coir in them to help maintain the water in there would be more beneficial. So I'll probably end up adding way more potting soil into this one than compost. Now, when looking at this tomato plant, this one is my bush tomato plant, the soil isn't dry, as you can see, unlike the rat tail radish ones, and both of these haven't been watered in 2 days, or a day. No, 2 days. Sorry about that. But when I'm looking at the overall health of the plant, I can see that the plant is starting to yellow a little bit. And it's really struggling trying to finally produce and get these tomatoes good and ready. So I need to provide this plant with some more food. So to this, I'm going to be adding compost. Now, looking at the leaves of your plants are going to give you a really great overall evaluation of how the health of your plant is. When you have a lot of fruiting plants, and like this tomato plant, it's not going to keep producing like this tomato plant is. It basically is going to put all it's got into the fruit that it provides, and then that's that. So after these turn red, I'm going to be pulling this plant and replacing it with another tomato plant. But it is struggling trying to produce all of this fruit. It only has so much nutrients that it came within the pot, or that I put in the pot originally, so I need to add some more nutrients to it. As you can see, the soil levels are depleted and the plant is starting to yellow, so it needs some food drastically. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is my tomato, broccoli, cilantro, snow peas bed. Now, this bed, the soil levels are nice, so as you can see, they're still up to there, but I can also tell that it's trying to produce a lot. Like, there's a lot going on in this bed, and so therefore each plant is trying to get as much nutrients as possible. We have broccolis trying to create heads. We have tomatoes trying to ripen a bunch of tomatoes. Like, look at this, guys. So many tomatoes on this plant. And then we also have cilantro trying to peek through here and produce some leaves. And then we have snow peas also trying to create snow peas. And then if you even look over, we have turnips trying to produce turnips, and then runner beans that are trying to grow to produce beans. So we want to make sure that this bed has enough nutrients to support all of these different plants and their needs. So how are we going to make sure that happens? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add more compost to this bed, but I don't need to just fill it. I need to just put little wedges in between the lines of the plants, so like right in between the tomato and the broccoli, or right in between the two broccoli plants, put a line and just put a scoopful of compost down in there, cover it back up. That's going to create more worm activity in this bed, which is going to increase the worm castings, which worms castings are basically vital nutrients for our plants, and it's also just going to give that nutrients back to the plants, so then therefore they can produce and grow a lot healthier. And then topping it with the worm tea and topping it with the fish fertilizer are going to provide a lot of nutrients for your plant. Alright guys, it's getting super windy out here. So now let's talk about what we're going to use for our worm tea and for our fish fertilizer. Now, I picked up one of these a long time ago. It basically has, like, Miracle Grow makes these. Miracle Grow does make an organic fertilizer. I don't use it, I don't like it, but I loved this little thing. And basically what it is that you can just add anything to this, so any type of fertilizer. I use it for my worm tea, and then you plug this part into the hose, and then it just kind of sprays and mixes whatever's in here. Now this is what I'm going to use for my foliage spray. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this up. And then I'm just going to connect this to the hose once I'm done watering at the base of the plants, and then I'm going to let the leaves get a nice coating of the worm tea. This puts a lot of beneficial bacteria onto that worm tea, or onto those leaves that are in the worm tea, because worm tea does have a lot in it. Now I know not all of you guys can get worm tea from the AZ Worm Farm, but there also is a company called Vermistera that makes a really good worm tea as well. I'll link that one down below for those of you guys that are not in Arizona and can't get it from the worm farm. If you can get it from the worm farm, if you live in Arizona, they do have it every Saturday. And their worm tea is not shelf stable, so it only is kind of good until about 4 hours, they said, because they use a bubbler to kind of create that oxygen and high oxygen levels within this tea. So after about an hour, it kind of all dissipates. Now that we have that, we'll set this over here and we'll bring in the watering can, which is a 2-gallon watering can. And in this, I'm going to put about maybe 2 tablespoons of fish fertilizer, and then also maybe about 1/4 cup of the worm tea. Now this is going to differ for each person's garden, because you don't want to follow just instructions on the backs of labels, if I can get that out, because you want to look at how your garden is growing. If your garden needs more fertilizer, apply more fertilizer. But if your garden is doing well, just apply it with enough to keep it going, because you don't want to over fertilize your plants, because that can do more harm than good. So then now all I'm going to do is fill this up with water, and then I'm going to water at the base of my plants. So one thing that I do want to point out is that I make sure that I only put worm tea and water on my leaves, because fish fertilizer can be quite heavy and it can kind of leave this like thick film of when it kind of chunks up. So I mix the fish fertilizer with the water and the green tea the worm tea in order to water at the base of the plants. I'm trying my best to avoid the leaves, and then for an actual like leaf spray, I just use the worm tea and the water. So I'm gonna go through my garden and I'm going to finish fertilizing and add compost where it needs to have compost, potting soil where it needs to have potting soil, and just blast the whole thing with fish fertilizer and worm tea. So bring on the flies and the weird smell that my neighbors are probably wondering what it is. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me down below in the comments. A lot of times I make videos to help people with questions that they have, and sometimes it's easier for me to show you what I'm talking about versus just telling you and you kind of trying to have to interpret it what it is that I'm saying. So until next time, make sure you guys grow yourselves a garden, because even a small space will provide you with tons of food. Bye guys.